video streams, so let's rock and roll. Good morning, podcasters. Today is Thursday, July 2nd, 2026, and today, sponsorships, audience trust, and untapped podcast assets, why monetization is bigger than ad reads, and how small creators can package what they already own into valuable partnerships. So, if you're listening live on Clubhouse, hit the share button, top right-hand side of the screen, and share it however Clubhouse lets you. And if you're catching us via podcast, YouTube, etc., please share this episode with a fellow podcaster. And now, give us about 30 seconds, and we'll get things rolling. Thanks for being here. The Podcasting Morning Show is powered by Ironic Media, helping podcasters launch, polish, and grow great shows. And by Content Creators Accountant, helping creators build real business behind their content. Good morning again, Podcasting Morning Show. Thank you so much for being here. I am your host, Mark Ronick, and currently on stage with me, my co-hosts, BC Babbles, DR Fay, Ralph Estep, Sid Meadows, and Phil Better. Good morning to all of you. Go check them out. Learn more about them at podcastingmorningshow.com/people. And we will get into today's topic today, but as promised from yesterday's show, I want to do our Spotlight series, bring that back. We do have a few of these sitting in the mailbag, so I figured let's go ahead and dig into one of them at least, because it's been a minute since we did that. So let me pull up my information here as I stall. Yep, okay, here we go. This show that I want to jump into today is called I Shake My Head. And here's how they described the show to us. I Shake My Head is a funny, unfiltered podcast where everyday life, pop culture, and the absurdities of the world get dissected with honesty, sarcasm, and plenty of laughs. It feels like sitting in on a conversation with your outspoken best friends, the kind who say exactly what everyone else is thinking.
It's a bunch of broads sitting around cussing. That's for me.
I see that one DR is all in on. Okay.
I'm shaking my head all the way over here at the studio in Delaware, DR. I'm shaking my head.
Oh, please. We already know, Ralph, that your guilty pleasure is listening to John's show. John's right. Here in the audience right now.
That is very true, but I have to put cotton balls in my ears when I do it.
I love it. And by the way, this Spotlight series, the whole idea of this is to take our community members and put their shows in the spotlight, share what our community is up to, and maybe give them a little feedback if necessary along the way. Good, bad, indifferent, to give them a little bit of feedback. So what we're going to do is play their trailer right now for you, and then we'll talk about it and get your thoughts on the other side. Here we go.
Hey, I'm Lisa Gibson.
And I'm Sam Sperling. And we've been together, we've been friends for 20 years.
Thanks for clarifying that, Samantha. Wow, 20 years. Why wouldn't we do a podcast together, right? That's 20 years of laughs.
And more than 20 years of shaking our heads at people and ourselves.
We lost whatever social filters we might have had years ago.
And on our weekly podcast, we'll have conversations we probably shouldn't share.
We share the daily trials and tribulations of being
impatient, judgmental, middle-aged white chicks in their mid-50s.
We're talking about aging, the good, the bad, the unexpected smells.
But at least we're doing it together, one sarcastic comment at a time.
We promise a show without filters, from a duo that's not quite politically correct.
Listen for new episodes every Friday with show notes, links, and transcripts at ishakemyheadpod.com.
Follow and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts.
So there you go. And I just want to know that last part, the good, the bad, and the smells. I want to know what that's all
We don't
about.
talk about it. No, we don't have to talk about
I got these here on the farm. See, I raise black Angus cows, and the smells out here, especially in July in Delaware, are
So-
amazing. Maybe there's a
All
podcast
of
in that
you
for me
males are
too.
not in the club. I'm so sorry. You're not in the club. So let's just leave it at that.
Ralph, I saw, before we get back to this clip, I saw that one of your cows had a baby recently.
Yes, we had a little baby calf born yesterday. Just absolutely amazing. But this mama cow decided to probably the hottest day of the year so far to be like, look, it's time to drop the calf. But I'm happy to report the calf is doing great. I can't tell if it's a little boy or a little bull calf, a little girl calf, but it's out running around the pasture this morning. So it seems like it's having a great day, but it's all legs. So if you ever see one born, they look like a table with just these long legs, and that's all there is right now.
Yeah, they look like they're teenagers, human teenagers, right? Like the same idea, the awkward body
They
type.
got to grow
Exactly,
into it.
but
Yeah.
just consider this: if you've ever had a baby, baby calves are 50 pounds at birth. So
Wow.
just think about that.
Yeah.
Wow.
My golden doodle is 65 pounds, so that gives you an idea right there. That's crazy. Yeah, all right, so back to this clip. I shake my head. I'm curious, after hearing it, who do you guys think this podcast is for? Like, who's their target audience? They didn't quite address that, but DR's pointing to herself.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, okay. So
Absolutely.
okay. Sid, how about you? You just raised your hand. Go for it.
Yeah, I mean, it's no doubt that this podcast is targeted at middle-aged women in their
Watch it.
50s and above. And I said middle, not old age. But I absolutely love this trailer. I was laughing, I was smiling the whole time through it. I love how real they were, and I love how authentically they put the call to action in there about where to find everything
Yes.
and where to follow them. It was so natural. And I would imagine that if I listened to this show, my cheeks would hurt from laughing so much.
There is an obvious chemistry that we get from that trailer. That you can just hear it from them. And yeah, there's something about their personalities and that chemistry that drew me in as well. I was smiling the whole way through when I first heard this. And with that call to action, one that stuck out to me that I noticed was they say, listen for new episodes every Friday with show notes, links, and transcripts. Like they're actually giving you more reasons why you can go check them out on Friday. I found that
I
interesting.
like that.
I also wonder, we do it here. We do it all the time. We say show notes, but does our audience really know what that means? Like, does the casual podcast listener know what show notes are? Some might, because if they're listening to a lot of shows regularly, they hear that often. But I just wonder, like, will that draw people in or not? I don't know.
Well, I mean, when we give out links during a show, during an episode, we will always follow it up with and just go to the show notes.
Right.
So, I mean, one of my shows that I produce, I've gotten into the habit of just doing a really short paragraph and the links, and that's it.
Okay.
And then on her website is where I do like the full blog post kind of show notes.
Got it. Okay. Cool. Love that.
I had a counterpoint, Mark, if you
Okay,
don't
sure.
mind me interjecting it.
Not at
So
all.
as I was listening to the trailer, it's great. It had great energy, but I'm worried that is it going to be a lot of insider talk over the last 20 years that the audience won't get because they didn't live that experience. And that's I haven't listened to the podcast to be very candid with you, but it's a sort of a red light for them maybe is to
Do we
say,
know
make sure you're laying
Episode
that
they're
out.
on? Do we know what
I
episode they're
don't
on?
know what episode
Okay.
they're on. And listen, I can relate to that concern as somebody who hosted a show very similarly described, I'll say. Right, the Mark and Lowell show was just that. Two friends for decades, talking about our past and our present. And that can get a little inside. And the key is, and I too have not yet listened to this show, although I am intrigued and probably will. The key is to make sure that you're always setting the joke up, right? Like even though your audience, the regulars know the joke and probably don't need the setup, you have to oftentimes, I believe, find a way to make sure they are in the know. So a lot of times, like an inside joke would come up on that show, and at some point, and it happens here too, for that matter, and I will find a point to just squeeze my way into that conversation, interject, and make sure that they understand what we're talking about.
Hey, Mark, you might want to go to
to.
John, because John Jamingo just put a comment. I don't know if you can chat about it or not, but he put a very interesting comment in the chat.
John, what say you, sir? Good morning.
All right, I'll give you a backstory about this show. I was in a Facebook group about 8 years ago, and Lisa says, I have a podcast, and we podcast from our car. And I went, oh boy, let me go listen to this dumpster fire. And I wasn't wrong. The audio quality was horrible. They put a phone in a cup holder and they would have conversations. But they said that they always had these amazing conversations in the car when they were driving somewhere. So I said to them, I found something really interesting about the two of them. And I've been producing that show, the audio of it and the video of it, since, I don't know, but they're on episode 510 now. They've never missed a Friday.
Wow.
She had a heart attack on her 60th birthday. I'm sorry, her 50th birthday. She had a heart attack.
Whoa.
And I don't know, 6 or 8 bypass surgery.
Wow.
They never missed an episode. We drug up clips for the best of and all when she went through her surgery and everything. They've never missed an episode. They're two friends, and they used to do it in the car. They almost died of carbon monoxide poisoning one time because they were doing it in Canada, and it was minus 50 degrees Celsius, and they were in the car with the car running in a parking garage, and they started to get carbon monoxide poisoning.
Oh, my God.
So they've been doing this a long time. Finally, when COVID came in, because I was begging them to go inside, get microphones. Finally, when COVID came, they couldn't do it in the car anymore. So they went inside with microphones, and they sound pretty good. So they're kind of like a pet project. They're friends of mine. They're friends of mine. They live in Canada. They're 2,100 miles away from me. But yeah, I do their show every week. I take their audio. They now use Riverside. They love it. I hate it. But
John, are they in
again,
the same room when they are recording, or are they like
Remote.
virtual as well?
separate rooms. They're
Okay.
in separate houses, right? Yeah.
Oh, okay.
That's
That's
awesome.
one of the things is Samantha has never invited Lisa to her apartment. So, so that's one of the things. And it's a fun listen because they don't really talk politics, and it's about the stuff that goes on in their lives and stuff. So I think you would like it.
Yeah.
So, do they have sponsors? Are they monetizing?
They are monetizing. They do have. They work with a network, some kind of women's Canadian network. They work with.
Oh,
But besides that, they have like they have a pre-roll and a mid-roll commercial is what they use, and I think they do it through the network that they use.
Okay.
okay.
And by the way, if anybody does want to check out that show, go to ishakemyheadpod.com and you can find out all about it. And I believe it's a Pod Page website. Just taking a look at it, just calling that out. Yeah, okay. Cool. And that's cool. John, did you introduce us to them?
I don't remember.
Okay.
I think I sent a promo in.
Okay.
But I don't know if because I told them about this show.
Mm-hmm.
Because they do a lot of podcasting. And I find, like I said, I listen to the show every day. So I find a lot of useful information about podcasting in here.
Yeah.
So I told them about it, but I don't know if they sent it, but I know I sent the promo in.
Got it. Okay. Very cool. That's awesome. I love the synergy here and the way that this all comes together. That's awesome. And yeah, I'm going to absolutely check them out. I hope you do as well. ishakemyheadpod.com. All right, I think it's time we dig into today's topic. That was fun. This is why we do the spotlight stuff. I think it's a fun thing that we do here, and hopefully helpful to the podcasters. And if you want to submit yours, just go to podcastingmorningshow.com/spotlight. All right, so today, here's where I want to go. BC brought this up, and I think that it's important to dig into this because a lot of podcasters hear the word sponsorship and immediately think about ad reads, pre-roll, mid-roll, post-roll, hopefully a host read ad, maybe promo codes. That's the way that I see a lot of podcasters looking at this. And if your download numbers aren't quote unquote huge yet, it's easy to assume, well, I guess I'm not ready for sponsors. But what if it's a limited way of thinking about this as far as sponsorship goes? What if sponsors aren't only buying airtime? What if there are other parts of your podcast brand that carry value, carries attention, trust, influence, etc.? That idea is what I'm talking about that BC brought to us, and he called it podcast real estate. So this morning, we're asking, what does that actually mean? What parts of your show are worth offering? And how do you avoid turning sponsorship into one more overwhelming thing on your plate? So BC, before we go any further, give us the simplest version of what you mean by podcast real estate and what you think podcasters may be missing when they only think about ad reads.
Sure. I think my simplest definition of podcast real estate would be any digital asset or channel that they control that they can leverage as it relates to their brand. And I know it sounds broad, but I think as we go into the conversation, we'll realize that it can be that inventory can be pretty expansive. And a lot of podcasters don't realize that.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I feel like DR, you wanted to comment. Am I wrong? I just thought maybe you were
Oh, no, I immediately I started thinking of local, sponsors. If you have a show and, go for those local sponsors too. I don't know if that's something that you're gonna
Mhm.
be hitting on during your talk, BC, but, that's where my mind went.
Yeah, that makes sense. I was thinking again recently about local, not just with sponsors, but even local promotions. I was having a conversation with that client I've told you guys about before that they're, for lack of a way of putting it, not trying to sound negative, they're obsessed with getting numbers, lots of people to listen, and they're feeling like they're a little bit plateaued right now. And I said, well, maybe we need to go outside the box. It's one of those, the definition of insanity, right? It's like we're doing the same thing over and over and over again and hoping for a new result, and it's not happening. So why not start getting out there to the local community and promoting it that way? So I know that's a whole other conversation, but that got me thinking when you said that, DR, and I just wanted to call that out. So, all right. So thank you for that, BC. Appreciate that. And this can be for you, BC. It can be for anybody here, right? This is a group conversation. So, but I will say this, BC, what made you start thinking personally beyond the episode itself, right? Like, I know that you have a podcast. What made you start thinking, maybe there's more real estate here?
Thankfully, it's my background in marketing. I've done a lot of marketing work with nonprofits, and as we know, with nonprofits, sponsorships are a huge thing. And a lot of my previous roles not only included managing where sponsors were seen based on their packages, but also designing those sponsorship tier packages that organizations offer. So, in doing that, I got to see just how much real estate an organization had. And I realized recently that translates pretty well over to podcasters too. So I thought
Mm,
that's why I started, thinking, this is a pretty solid topic.
yeah. Now, one other area, where I guess where I want to say is, what's one piece of podcast real estate that you or anybody here
Mhm.
thinks podcasters commonly overlook, right? Like we automatically assume our
Yeah.
podcast.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think it can be kind of a individual basis, but I think common ones would include things like websites and newsletters. Any of those kind of main platforms that you use to push your content, your main content or related content can be solid pieces of real estate that podcasters may not realize to use or leverage when it comes to sponsorships.
Yeah, absolutely. And I saw Ralph, did you want to say something? I just feel like you might have been.
Yeah, I did
Yeah.
actually, because I think one of the things we need to focus in on is, and you use the word real estate, BC. I love that. I think the biggest piece of real estate that a lot of content creators don't get is their audience itself is real estate.
Hmm.
And what goes along with that is a lot of trust and a lot of other things. So, as we get into this discussion today, think about that, because as you open up more pieces of real estate, just make sure you're remembering your first piece of real estate is your audience. If you lose that, you've got nothing left to stake your claims on.
I love that. So maybe a good way to look at it might be that the audience is the real estate, but the assets are the inventory.
Yeah, I mean, I think about it like when I used to play Monopoly, right? You go around the board and you would land on a property, and then you would put houses on it, you would put apartments on it. I think we have to start off with the basis of our biggest real estate as content creators is our audience, and that's where the trust starts. And then these are all things that you can bring products and services and ideas and sponsorships to your audience, but never forget that trust you've built up can be lost in an instant if you're not careful about what you introduce to your audience. I'm not trying to sidetrack the conversation. I just think it's important that we start with that, because if you're a new podcaster, the only thing you have going for you is the trust that you have right now with your audience. Violate that, and you're going to spend a whole lot of time rebuilding that.
Right.
Thank you, Ralph. And Sid, I know you want to say something, and I have a question for you as well. So DR wants to chime in. I'm going to go to her first, and then I'll go to you with your response and then a question for you. Go ahead, DR.
So, when thinking about how you can package basically something for sponsors, I do like to think outside the box, and it could be maybe a live on Instagram where audience members can ask questions, and get direct answers from the sponsor, whoever the sponsor
Hmm.
is. You mentioned newsletters. I think that is like my number one thing, to be honest with you. I'm a newsletter
Yeah.
freak. And also, how about like live events? And that kind of coincide with that, with the local, there goes my camera, with the
Yeah.
with the local thing going on that I had mentioned before, maybe live events.
I
No,
feel
that's
like I
perfect
need a
because yeah,
soundtrack for when DR's camera goes black or something, like, Back
we
in
need a
Black or
new.
something, maybe some AC/DC, that
There
would
you
be pretty
go.
cool, right?
There you go.
Well, as an audio first podcast, that would probably not make sense when it happens for our audio listeners, but I like the idea for sure. Let's see here. By the way, shout out producer Ashley in the audience. We haven't seen
That's
Ashley in a
right.
while. Great to see you, Ashley, and you are welcome to, as everyone is, but I just want to shout you out and say you're welcome to come up on stage at any point and be a part of this conversation. You are a permanent co-host here at the Podcasting Morning Show, so you're always welcome. All right, so I did want to go to Sid. I know he wanted to chime in. I think he wanted to chime in on some of those overlooked pieces of real estate. So, Sid, you're welcome to share. But I know that when I was telling you about what we were doing today, you brought up something really important. So, also take this time to share some of that too, please. Good morning.
Good morning, everybody. So, to answer the question from BC about, or you about the real estate we're overlooked, I think one of the places you might overlook if you're a podcaster that does audio and video both is your YouTube channel. You can separately monetize just your YouTube channel, which could be very beneficial. I also think that you could look at like your Instagram channel, for example, and monetize that separately with one sponsor. So when I had my first sponsor several years ago, we had a pretty clear document about everything. He came back to me and he said, "Hey, what about social?" And he was talking about Instagram and LinkedIn. And I said that was not included in our original package. I'm happy to update the proposal and give you the additional cost for it. And they passed on it, which is fine. I knew they would pass on it, which is kind of why I positioned it that way. But, I think anywhere that you're, let's call it publishing content is an opportunity. Substack, great
Hmm.
opportunity if you're active on Substack, just to monetize that with one sponsor rather than multiple sponsors like you have on your show. So I think there, anywhere you're publishing content or anywhere you're showing up, has the opportunity, I think, to generate income. And
Exactly.
to answer your question, Mark,
Let me stop you real quick because
oh,
I had a question about YouTube channel. And yes, I totally agree with you that that is its own revenue stream in itself. And I know that you personally have shared with us before that your podcasts you consider audio first. Is that fair to say? Audio first?
yes, we are an audio first podcast with a video component.
Okay, so how do you take advantage or do you take advantage yet of YouTube as from a financial standpoint?
So right now it's not monetized separately. The ads that run on the audio podcast run on the video version of it. So it's not separate. Moving forward, I don't know. I'm rethinking about 2027 and what's that going to look like as it relates to monetization because I am going to change some things. Um, but one of the things that I'm thinking about along with video is the Apple and Spotify video. That's going to cost me extra money to actually do. I'm not just going to
Mhm.
do it and include it. So I might actually monetize or charge or find a sponsor that is the sponsor of the video. Like we could say our video sponsor is blah blah blah
Yeah.
kind of thing. So
You know what I
again,
like
that's
about that too is when you say something like that on your audio podcast and you say, you know, our video is sponsored by the Podcasting Morning Show. I like that because it's a cue, a subtle cue to your listening audience that, oh, there is video out there.
Right, subliminal kind of thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
almost. Yeah, it's just planting that seed and allowing it to
and you may
sprout.
discover that somebody on your audio well, you may discover that somebody in the audio prefers to watch video. And when you talk about your video feed, then they might go actually watch the video.
Mhm.
Right?
Yep.
So it can drive traffic just as much as YouTube can drive traffic to the audio. I think the audio can drive traffic to the video component as well. So
Yeah.
again, I'll say it anywhere that you're publishing, I think there's an opportunity for you to evaluate sponsorships and how they might work for you.
Yeah, and we learned from an article and a study that was done that we talked about yesterday. We learned that we know that our audience, when I say people, our audience will follow us to different platforms. So I say, don't be shy about talking about your different platforms. Whether you're audio first, video first, wherever you are, talk about the other platforms. You don't have to go into a big spiel, a big selling pitch, but you can just subtly talk about it. And those loyal listeners are going to listen for that and they're going to get curious.
Hey, Mark, I want to throw something out there you just said that just struck me.
Okay.
I think one of the things that we need to do as content creators is reframe the discussion that we're audience first. Because the truth is, our audiences could care less if it's an audio or video. They want value. So maybe as a group, we should start thinking about audience first. It just hit me when you were talking about audio versus video first, because I hear a lot of people talk, well, I'm audio first, well, I'm video first. I think we all should be audience first. That's exactly what we're talking about today.
Yeah, I think and Ashley, great point. Ashley puts community first or audience first. Yeah, I'm there with you, Ashley. I think our words are important, and I think that's a great way of framing it. Either way, however you prefer to say it, I think Ralph, yeah, you're onto something in this day and age as podcasting has evolved. Whether some people like it or not, video is a factor now, and I think instead of saying audio first, video first, yeah, just saying community first makes a lot more sense. And that goes to that whole point that we just discussed. Very cool. Thank you for that, pointing that out, Ralph. All right, so Sid, I mentioned a moment ago that when we talked about today's show topic, you had a concern or something important you wanted to share. Please bring it to us here.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's going to align with what Ralph said just a few minutes ago. Monetization will elude you. Real monetization will elude you if you don't know your audience. If you don't know who your show is for, you're going to struggle making real money with your podcast. And when I say know, you got to know everything about them. You got to be because what the sponsor is actually buying. Again, this is aligning with something that Ralph just said. What the sponsor is actually buying, or the advertiser is actually buying, is access to your community. Well, who is your community? Can you clearly articulate to your sponsor, potential sponsor, who your audience is, what they do, what they sell, the jobs that they hold, how old are they? Can you really communicate that? And I think the more, and I've talked to so many podcasters and I've asked the question, who's your audience? Who's your ideal listener? And so many of them say, yeah, I don't really know. And that's honestly, that's foundational. You have to start
Yeah.
there. And if you don't really know who they are, interview them, put a call out to interview them. And I've talked before about how I track them and the things that I do to stay connected with them. But all 8 of my sponsors, and I'll talk about this at the event in August, all 8 of my sponsors wanted one common thing, and that was access to my community. They wanted to be inside my ecosystem and connect with the audience. And every one of them has told me how much paying off for them, how they're getting new customers, they're getting new inquiries, and it's worked. And, so, I think you just got and I know my audience, because I was one of them, and so many times when we create content, that's what we're doing, is creating content for our younger self. So, you can't skip this part. This to me is just foundational, and you've got to know who your audience is or who your show is for.
Yeah, I think that's very important. And Sid, I feel like there was another thing you were concerned about, and I think it was around overwhelm with this discussion. Did you want to
Oh,
talk
yeah.
about that too?
Yeah, thank you. Sorry, I haven't had a chance to go back and look at our text thread. Sorry.
That's okay.
To jog my old brain. So one of the things that I think about is as a podcaster, because you're a marketer, you're marketing your show, right? Whether you have a marketing degree or consider yourself a marketer, you're a marketer. Maybe it's accidental, but you've got to market your show in order to get the reach and the visibility that you need to bring listeners or watchers into your ecosystem. And when you try to be everywhere and do everything, you are going to overwhelm yourself. And that's what I worry about because, like, I do Instagram partially, LinkedIn's my primary platform. I'm considering Substack, but I keep asking myself as I'm trying to figure out my strategy for Substack, do I have time? Can I be committed to this? Right? Is this something that I really want to do? Is this really going to help me grow? And I haven't answered those questions, but I don't need to just add one more thing to my plate to do. I got enough to do on a daily basis. And so I don't need to add one more thing. And so I worry about when we try to be everywhere and try to be everything to everybody, if it doesn't just create overwhelm. And I think overwhelm is one of the things that contributes to stress, that will contribute to anxiety, that will contribute to podcasters stopping, and that will contribute to pod fame. So I just say be cautious.
I see Ashley's agreeing with you from the audience. Yeah, I think that is important. There's so many moving pieces to what we do. Adding this as a piece can really maybe be the tipping point for a lot of people. So you gotta make sure you know what you can handle and then how. But so I guess that's just a good caveat, a good thing for you, the listener, to keep in mind as we dig into things like sponsor packages and the different types of things that we can put together to sell to a sponsor. And I think before we talk about those, we probably need to figure out, to Sid's point, where our audience is actually paying attention. This goes back to what he was saying, understanding our audience, knowing our audience, right? So for those on stage, or if you're in the audience and you want to participate or watching on YouTube, for those of you, where does your audience seem most responsive outside of the podcast itself? And listen, I get that some of us may say, well, this area here is most responsive, but I'm not getting a lot of people interacting with me there. But when I get some interaction, it's there. That's fine. If that's your answer, that's at least a starting point for you. If that's where you're hearing from people, even if it's from time to time, then maybe we want to think about focusing our efforts there. So I'm curious, where do you all hear from your audience the most? BC, go ahead.
My audience right now is most responsive on my Substack first. Second, I'd say TikTok, and then Instagram, because I'm getting a lot of the responses, a lot of the likes, the views, and the downloads. So I'm pretty happy with that track so far.
Yeah, that makes sense. And for me, for the podcasting morning show, I would say, man, I'll tell you, I feel like engagement is down, but when I get it. Sometimes I'm getting it from my newsletters. There will be times where a newsletter will go out, and then all of a sudden I'll get a handful of replies to that newsletter. So that's one for me for sure. Instagram occasionally, in the sense that I'm not getting a lot of comments on my content lately, but I am getting people sliding into my DMs, people asking me questions, reaching out to me, curious about my services, etc. So I'd say probably as far as where my audience connects with me, it would be those two places the most. And actually, Facebook would be a big one now as well because of our Facebook group community over at Empowered
LinkedIn?
Podcasting.
Anything on LinkedIn?
Man, yes, but I'm going to say no, because I feel like most of that engagement are the spammers and those guys, the spammers and scammers. But I do definitely get communication there, but it's more from my colleagues there than from my audience. But I do get some comments. So I'm kind of wishy-washy here on LinkedIn, but I'm probably just not giving it enough credit, and I think that's why.
So LinkedIn is first for me. That's
Mhm.
where my audience is, and I get great engagement. I get decent amount of shares and comments. Second would be the LinkedIn newsletter feature. I have over almost 1,200 subscribers on my LinkedIn newsletter, I think. And when we do a newsletter with every interview podcast. And when we do, LinkedIn emails that out to the people that have subscribed and have that setting turned on. We get a over 50% open rate, and which is really high, and a 7 to 8% click rate, which is also really high. And then my third would be my email list. Every Tuesday at 9:50 morning, they're getting an email from me, and they know it. And the open rates are 49 to 52% depending. The click rates are 8%, and that's really good. So, those are the three places that get the most engagement for me. I mean, I don't really focus a lot on Instagram. I probably should. But, again, it's just like I'm doing it, but I'm not doing it the best way or the right way.
I wonder
And
why
I know
you say
that.
you think you should on Instagram, because is your
So
audience
there's
there?
not, yes. Yeah. Yeah. I know they are there.
Okay.
I've
Sid, can I ask a
connected with a
question
lot of
about your
them.
newsletter?
Yeah. The LinkedIn one. Yeah.
Well, not the LinkedIn one. I mean, do you have one aside from the LinkedIn
No,
newsletter?
I do not. No, I do not.
Okay.
Again, that's something else on my list. Like, okay, can I do this? Yeah, I can do this. Do I have time? I don't know.
Okay.
I don't. I send a weekly email. It's a if it's a, I, For me, it's an above the scroll. It's mostly text only. Very few. If I do an
That's exactly what
image,
I wanted to know about. Mostly
yeah,
text only. I have been
yeah.
told by a few people that if you get the artistic side of me wants that beautiful banner with the colors and everything, and people have told me it's not going to open, it's going to open slow because of some people's systems, and then they're going to get upset, and they're just going to click off of it and put you in the round file. And
Well, in Microsoft VR, you have to click the download images button on
Mhm.
my email. I have to click to see it, and so I'm very protective of my email list and
Right.
how much I email.
I think we lost Sid there for a
Yeah, I
second.
think we did.
And
Oh,
I kept got more, like scroll, and I hate freaking scrolling it. I hate getting an email from somebody that's going to take me 5 scrolls to read it.
Right.
mm,
So I'm really protective of that. It's like if you scroll, it's a half of a scroll. I use emojis occasionally or bullet points to bullet point the highlights of the episode, and my call to action is always the same. And it's just really simple and easy to read. And I'm just really protective because I'm really and listen. A couple of years ago, I edited that email list from 2,000 people down to 500. If you had never opened up an email from me, I took you off my list. And my marketing person was like, "You sure you want to do this?" I'm like, "Yes." And when I did, my open rate skyrocketed.
uh-huh.
My click-through rate skyrocketed, focused on the people that want to hear from me. And so I'm emailing them today's Thursday, right? I'm emailing them today. Rarely send an extra email, but I am sending an extra email today at 1:15 about the new program that I launched, the private podcast. And I'm anxious to see how that goes because there were some other things that I did this past week about the private podcast that has really yielded great results we can talk about later. But, I'm just super protective of that email list because they're engaged with me
Mhm.
and I'm never going to spam them.
Fair enough. Thank you, Sid. And yeah, good question, DR. Appreciate that one. So, all right. Well,
Mark, can I jump in there for a second?
Oh, yeah. Sorry, Ralph. I saw you wanted to say
No,
something.
it's okay
My
because
apologies.
I don't want to overlook something that Sid just said without saying it. Catch what Sid is saying. He's measuring results in each of these things. And that's the thing I think a lot of content creators overlook. You might do 15 different things. Are you measuring the results of each one? I work with small business clients every day. Time and time again, I'll say to a small business client, all right, tell me about this service you offer. Is it profitable for you? Tell me about this service. Is it profitable for you? As a content creator, you've got to be doing the same thing. And that's exactly what Sid is saying. Sid is saying, I'm measuring results. So stop thinking about what platforms am I going to be on? What real estate am I going to get into? What is actually moving the needle? And understand what that looks like. Understand those benchmarks, because then you can make a determination of whether this is wasting time or not. Sid said something about, well, I probably should be on this or I'm not on this. You got to have empirical evidence to say, okay, is it moving the needle or not? I just wanted to jump in there and say that because that's something that he's rock solid on. And the reason Sid is being successful in monetization is he knows what's working and he's measuring it and he's comparing it to other things that aren't working.
Yeah, exactly why I brought that question up. Where are you connecting most with your audience right now? Where are they engaging with you? That for that very reason, to help us all think about that and start moving, for those of us that maybe aren't, moving our minds in that direction. Because, yeah, to the point earlier that Sid made about the fact that we can all get really overwhelmed with all the things. Well, sometimes that's just because we hear, you got to be here, you got to be there, you got to sell it this way, and you got to do it that way. And that's burnout. That's the recipe for burnout. So I think it's just important to focus on the areas that we know is starting to work or maybe catching a little fire and then fuel that fire. Yes, Sid, go ahead.
So I just want to really appreciate the support in the comments, Ralph and Mark, from all of you. I just want to be very clear. It appears is that I've got my crap together on a daily basis, that I am super organized and zeroed in. In some things I am, but I just want to be a hot mess on most days. But I'm not afraid to try something. I'm not afraid to put myself out there and try something. So, though it may sound like I'm just like fully organized and dialed in, I certainly don't feel that way on a daily basis. Because this is, figuring all this out is really challenging. And like, try this. And if this works, that's great. If this works, that's great. If it doesn't, what did I take away from it? And what can I do differently or better? And so, I'm not afraid to try new things, but I am not as together as it sounds. I just want to be clear, okay?
It's how it looks from the outside, brother. That's all that matters.
Yeah, I mean, and look, to me, Sid, that I look at you as having your crap together for that very reason you shared, because you're not afraid to try new things. And I am willing to admit that that's my weakness right there. I hesitate when it comes to trying new things. I make lots of excuses. I tell myself why I shouldn't try that thing, because it's maybe one of the big ones that are the recurring things is because it's going to take a long time for it to finally work, right? There's a build up, and I'm impatient for that build up. So I respect and appreciate that you do try new things. And I look at people who do try new things as having their crap together, or at least maybe more so than I have mine together.
Is that your ADHD or is that just a Mark thing?
I don't know. I hear it's common among people with ADHD because our executive functioning doesn't work quite like the average person's does. So making decisions sometimes can be really hard for us.
Yeah.
But
So listen,
either way, it's a pain.
I wanted to just mention that in the comments, both Dave and John, Dave said they do a weekly meetup for podcasters, and John says he has a Discord Discord server where I interact with my audience. So, yeah, they're working it. They're working it.
Nice. Nice. Yeah. Okay, so I think we've talked about the areas we want to focus on, the areas that we maybe should be focusing on. Before I think now let's talk a little bit about sponsor packages pricing and talking about that real estate a little bit more. I know that we've mentioned things like newsletters, places like Substack and social media. And if there are others that we haven't mentioned yet, by all means, share them with us here today on stage. And let's talk about it, like maybe using some examples of how we're packaging things. And maybe Sid's a great place to start here. Sid, could you give us an example of maybe a package that a podcaster might want to start with? Something that maybe is not too overwhelming for them, but they're still hitting all the different areas of real estate that they have?
Yeah, so this is a really great question. And what I would tell you where not to start is selling ads. Don't start selling ads
And this is
because
something
ads
Ralph
are
brought up
heavy.
yesterday.
Yeah. Yeah, just don't start selling ads because it's a hustle to try to sell a 30-second ad. And then you're gonna get into the battle with the marketing person over CPM. And we know that doesn't work for independent podcasters. So I would not start selling ads. But what I would do is actually look at my ecosystem and look at where your content's getting the most reach for your ideal client or your ideal listener. And I would start small. I would not try to do everything. That was one of the mistakes I made. We made our sponsorship program too complicated for us. It looks really great on a piece of paper, and
Mm.
the whole purpose was I got to make it easy for them to say yes. And I gave them too much. And on the back end, it has been a pain in my butt for us to get all this together and to track to make sure we're doing everything that we committed to them that we would do, because I don't want a phone call or a conversation when I'm asking for renewals, which is going to be coming up in a couple of months when I'm asking them to renew. I don't want to hear, well, Sid, you didn't live up to this part of it and we didn't get our money's worth. You didn't do this, you didn't do that. So start small. Just maybe pick one thing. And then I would also encourage you to think long term. So I've had several friends that sell monetization in a 3 to 5 episode package. I would not recommend that because you're always selling and you're always trying to find the next sponsor for the next thing. And then you get busy and you got record.
Uh-oh.
I monetize for the entire season. So you sign a contract with me if it's the entire season of my show. So maybe just pick audio only. Start small and then think bigger picture and try to get a sponsor that is for the full year or a minimum of 6 months, so that you're not having to sell sponsorships every week and every day.
Is that how long your seasons are, Sid? 6 months?
No, no, no. My season is 10 months. We take
10.
December and January off.
Okay.
And so when you buy my package is the 10 months. So somebody that signs up as my gold sponsor who pays $2,500 a month is signing a contract to pay me $25,000 over the course of a year of the 10 months.
Nice. That's impressive. Yeah. And I'm going to say this. I'm going to, I guess, not, I guess for lack of a better term, push back slightly here, because if we're talking right now to a brand new podcaster, I think what you just suggested, Sid, could be really overwhelming for them to,
All right, bring it on.
right? Because the first time that they're maybe selling their podcast or parts of their podcast, if it's their first time, they may feel like, I don't know how I'm going to pitch 6-12 months for a package. It feels like a lot to me. And if for those people, I feel like then starting out small just to get their feet wet would do them good. You know, finding a local sponsor like DR had brought up earlier, finding a local sponsor and maybe pitching 1, 2, 3, whatever that is, just a couple of single host read mentions. Tell them we're going to add it in the show notes and maybe that you're going to mention them in your newsletter as well. But like trying to keep it small just to build that confidence, I think could go a long way. So what do you think, Sid?
You're not wrong, Mark. You're not wrong. And I guess I would say I probably wasn't thinking about the podcast or just getting started. That because the podcast are just getting started may not be committed just yet to doing a full season or a full year of episodes. Maybe they may not even be committed to a consistent schedule of weekly or monthly publishing.
Mm-hmm.
So you're certainly not wrong. What I'm just suggesting is it's a grind to constantly be trying to sell ads for your podcast or to sell sponsorships for your podcast. And I'm not a fan of the grind. And I think the grind can start to feel really heavy and be one of those reasons that you say, I just can't do this anymore. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So to your point, start small. And Billy and I have talked about this a lot. I am a huge fan of local businesses and the reach that you could give a local business if you have a local podcast. If your podcast is specific to a town or a city or a region, and that's where your audience is, and you're talking about local things like community focused podcast, meaning your community, then there is a plethora of advertising opportunities for you and sponsorship opportunities in your local market. I'm a huge fan of that.
One caveat to that, you may not be doing a podcast about your local area, but you may have a large section of your audience from your area. Or maybe they're from another area and you go local to that area to try to pitch local sponsors. Right? So it doesn't necessarily have to be a show about the local area, but if you are going to pitch local shows, it's going to be to your advantage to be able to say, yeah, and 70% of my audience, they come from this particular area. That would be still a value to a sponsor. Ralph, you wanted to chime in.
Yeah, and I don't want to contradict you, Mark, but one of my concerns with those small plans is that if I think about what the goal here is, you want your sponsorship to benefit from this relationship. And if it's only a small number of episodes, if it's only a small sampling, I think you might be doing yourself a disservice because I don't think there's going to be enough time. There's not going to be enough repetition in that. And I know that's not what you're saying, Mark. So I'm not contradicting you. I'm just saying I think we need to be careful of that because I think when I was doing radio advertising, it was some ridiculous number. Like the person needs to hear this 70 times before they make a move on it.
I think it's technically 7.
Seven.
Yes,
okay. But yeah, it was a big number. So what I'm thinking is if you're just going to have, 3 shows with sponsor read ads, I think your sponsor is going to be disappointed because I don't think it's going to move the needle unless you have a really big audience. That's just my counterpoint on that. That like I said, it's not my goal to be combative on this.
No.
I just feel like we have to be careful of that. And that's one of the reasons where think about what Sid said. He's selling a year's worth of sponsorship for $25,000. I guarantee if you talk to his sponsors, they want to make 4 or 5 times that in revenue based on that sponsorship. And that's why they're willing to spend that money. I think even for the new independent podcaster, we need to think about these sponsorship relationships need to be more intermediate term so that the sponsor can feel good about it and actually see a return on their investment.
Yeah. And
So
let me just say this and then I'll give you the floor, Sid. One thing is that I do believe that radio, and although there aren't statistics that I know of out there right now, but radio and podcast audiences are very different when it comes to the power of ads, right? Podcast audiences are way more responsive, and there is data out there, way more responsive to ads than a radio audience is. So I don't know that the frequency is as high for a podcast, 7 times. I don't know for sure about that, but I do know that they are way more responsive. And then, Ralph, I can't disagree with you. And Sid was saying more or less what you were saying too, that you're going to save yourself a lot of time and headache if you can sell a bigger, meaning time over time, a bigger package. I totally agree with that. And again, I've worked with enough new podcasters that maybe don't have the sales chops, that they're too intimidated to try to go out there and sell something massive like that. And so I just want I want to give those people permission to go small at first, to get your feet wet, to build up some confidence and get a little bit of money in your pocket. You're not going to retire off it, but I think that'll give you the momentum you're looking for to then start shooting for bigger and better things. That's where I was going with that. Go ahead, Sid.
So, um, when I was selling my sponsorships, there was a company that I really wanted. And I knew the CEO really well, had gotten to know him over the years pretty well. When I pitched it to him, he was all in, like ready to go. Then he wanted to bring his marketing director in. And he wasn't able to make the call when I had the call with the marketing director. And she was the naysayer. She didn't want to do it. And she's like, yeah, this is really expensive, Sid. And I'm just not sure the value is there. And I was pitching them the gold sponsorship. I only have two gold positions. And she goes, I think it'd be better for us to be a silver sponsor, which is significantly less money, $7,500 for the year, right? So significantly less money. And so the CEO believes in me, believes in the podcast. So he signed up for the gold sponsorship. And she was still a naysayer. She was a pain in my butt for the first couple of months of the show, and her logo wasn't here, this wasn't there, and she pushed me really hard. And so I pushed through it all. And then I met her in June at our furniture show, Neocon. And I was in a showroom. She happened to be there. I'd never met her in person. I'd only seen her on camera. And she grabbed me and stopped me and said, Hey Sid, I'm blah blah with blah blah. And I went, Oh my gosh, it's so great to meet you. How are you? We chatted for a minute and she looked me dead in the face and said, Sid, I'm so glad that we sponsored your podcast the way we did. We have gotten multiple leads from your show. And right
Mm,
there is the value. Whether it's not up to me to close those leads for them, they have to do their job, but I got them the leads. And it becomes a warm lead because it's a referral from my show or from my videos, right? And so, um, but my point being is I had a naysayer and I was able to, through doing what I do every day of the week, I was able to turn her into a fan. And I'm pretty confident that they will re up again when we have that conversation.
mm.
So, but to Ralph's point, they are looking for results. They are looking to trip double or triple their investment. And probably for this guy, because they're a software company, one sale probably it doubles the investment that he's made in my show. And he's got multiple leads. It's up to him to close them, but he's gotten what I could give him, which was the opportunity and somebody knocking on his door saying, I want to learn more.
That is a cool story. I love that. Thank you, Sid. All right, so I was just thinking about here, we haven't really gotten into a lot of different types of packages, but I think it's important to share with you if you're still curious and wanting some more here. I think the idea is to find those areas that are where your audience is and find ways to package this together. So what does that mean? Let's say you're going to give a mention on your podcast, you're going to do once a week, once a month, whatever that frequency is, a social media post about that sponsor, and you're going to put an ad or a mention in your newsletter, and then what's one other thing that we could throw out there that maybe we could package?
You could put an
Product
Instagram reel or something like that with their logo on it or something like
product
that.
placement, like
Product
in the
placement might be
video, you
good.
can
Yep.
have something in the background,
Event
product placement.
sponsor.
Event
Mhm.
sponsor. Yeah.
Mhm.
So
Their
find,
logo on your YouTube banner, their
yeah.
logo on
Mm.
your Instagram banner.
Oh, that's
There's
great.
Website,
lots of little
newsletter.
pluses.
And then you know what, Sid? So how do we figure out, let's wrap it up with this. How do we figure out how to price stuff like that? Right? Because I know that's a big question that podcasters ask me. It's like, okay, this sounds great, but I have no idea what to charge for that.
So it's a great question, Mark. And the first and foremost thing you should do is look at what your show costs you. How much money are you outlay? Look at like your real cost of production of your show and include your time, right? And if you don't know how much your time is worth, there's a mathematical formula that you can figure out, which is basically take however much money you want to make during the course of a year, divide that by 2080, which is the total number of working hours, air quotes, in a year, and that's your hourly rate. So if it takes you 4 hours then the cost is 4 hours times your hourly rate plus whatever production cost that you may pay to someone else. If you have a business coach or a podcast coach, I mean, that's the cost. So look at all those costs. And then from there, I would at a minimum double that. At a minimum, I would double that. So if everything in all in cost you $1,000, then I would try to sell the advertising for $2,000. So you can make money on it. You can make profit on it,
Yeah.
right? Now I'm going to be really clear here. I just made it up. I just made it up.
Uh-huh.
I'm gonna talk about this at Power Podcasting 3 when I give my workshop and at Podfest when I speak at Podfest about this topic. I just made it up. I thought I knew how much. I mean, I had a target of how much money I wanted to make. I wanted my podcast to bring in $100,000 in revenue. That was my goal. And so I just made it up. And I looked at the math to figure it out. And then I said, okay, I'm going to have this many of this sponsor, this many of this sponsor, and this many of that sponsor. And so, I mean, I got close to my goal. I got to $80,000 on an annual basis. So I got close and
Wow.
I'm really, really happy with that. And I learned a lot about what to do differently, but you have to look at what the show cost you to get it out the door and then determine how much you want to make and start there. You can always come down. I would discourage negotiation, but you can always come down. It's really hard to go up.
Wow. Thank you, Sid. Great stuff. I couldn't say it any better myself. And I see BC has his hand up, so we'll give BC a chance to chime in here as well. Go ahead, BC.
One quick additional question to said about this. Should someone, let's say a podcast who's been looking to delegate production to a small firm or agency they want to be able to afford, use this opportunity to establish that new cost? So instead of calculating how much it costs them to produce, calculate in this agency they want to delegate to and make that the beginning sponsor tier.
I mean, yes, absolutely. You should consider. I mean, I outsource my production and I know exactly how much it costs me. Right. So, yes, you can do that. But I mean, you have to know what it costs you. But I noticed in the comments that Ralph disagrees with my thought there. And I would love to hear his thought on it because he's not wrong based on the comment that I saw.
Yeah. So, and I don't want to keep us because I got to run too, but here's my opinion on this. I think cost is the absolute worst thing to look at. I think what you've got to look at is what is the value you're bringing to the sponsor? What is the value you're bringing to your audience? If you look at cost, you're going to consistently underprice what your value is. When I sell accounting services, I don't look at what it costs me to deliver those. I look at the value that I'm bringing to the person. I'm looking at the value that I'm bringing to the you got to do the same thing with your content creation. I don't disagree with the idea, Sid, that the cost has to be a floor, fine. But the problem is so many content creators are going to hear that and they're going to go, well, as long as I'm meeting my costs, I've got a little bit of revenue, great. You said it yourself. You had one particular sponsor who hit a home run with this. That's the value that you bring. And I just think that that's a better place to start because we will constantly undersell ourselves if we're only focusing on the cost.
It's funny because I see it as both. And I also see that I think sometimes a lot of the podcasters I work with undervalue what they offer.
Right. I was
don't
trying to
see it
figure
as
out how do I even come up with an amount. I wouldn't even know how to do that.
right. So I think that's why it's both. I don't think Sid's wrong. I don't think Ralph is wrong. I think it's both. It's understanding what your costs are because otherwise you might put a value on it and then be selling yourself short and losing money. Right. So you do have to factor that in. What's your cost? But to Ralph's point, that's only one step because just because it costs you a certain amount of money, it could be way more valuable for your sponsors in the long run. So I think it is a combination. I really do. I think it's smart to think about cost and then even smarter to think about what value does this bring.
So, Ralph, maybe on one of those, we don't do the Money Mondays anymore, but the Money
Money
Tuesdays,
Tuesday. Yeah.
you can talk about how we can figure out what that value is worth.
Yeah.
Is there a formula or something
Yeah.
like that? Just a thought.
Okay, cool. Ralph's nodding his head. All right, cool. So we will look forward to that coming soon. And let's wrap with this. Your podcast real estate is the space where your audience pays attention, they respond, they trust your voice. That might be your episode. It might be an email list. It might be a live room like this. I didn't even say that, right? Like Clubhouse is probably really where I get the most interaction from my audience on a regular basis, right? It could be your niche community, the website, recurring conversations that you've built over time. The opportunity is to know what you have, know what matters, and build sponsorship opportunities around the real relationships that you have with your audience. So let's leave it right there and remind you that we do not have a show tomorrow morning, Friday, because it is now our summer schedule. We do this every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, yes, at 8 a.m. Eastern time. So come join us by going to podcastingmorningshow.com/join us. And until Tuesday, make it a great 4th of July weekend to those who celebrate. Take care.
Give me some firecracker brats.